G'day folks, my name's Greg Nash and welcome to Power BI Hack. Joining me today is Alice Drummond from discoverei.com. Alice is the Director of Environmental Analytics and the co-founder of Discover EI. She's a Victorian-based Microsoft MVP for data platform. She builds amazing environmental-based reporting for a whole bunch of different stuff. You can see their stuff over at discoverei.com. I'm really looking forward to my conversation with Alice. We're going to be talking about environmental data and all things Power BI, so we'll see you in a sec. All right, we are live. Cool. So thanks for coming, Alice. I really
Yeah, no
appreciate it.
worries.
I love the energy you bring to Power BI demonstrations. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you and doing a bit of Power BI. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. I've seen a lot. There's been a ton of like live stream webinars and kind of presentation styles, but not really like a more teaching element here. So I think this will be really cool.
Yeah, it should be fun. Like, this is my favorite thing to do, is to hack around with Power BI with people and talk about how we approach things. And everyone's got a different style and different expertise, and so obviously it's all I think we can get a lot out of everyone. So let's get into it. We'll have a look at this data set. So you've supplied us some cool data set here. Tell us a bit about this data set. What are we looking at?
Yeah, so I think you've got it up on your screen there. What we're having a look at here is some streamflow gauging information. So in this Excel spreadsheet here that you have open, we've got a number of site locations. So we have a streamflow gauge ID with a name and a lat and a long. And these streamflow gauge, like what it is for people who haven't heard, what is a streamflow gauge?
What's streamflow?
Yeah, it's like a monitor we go and install in rivers, and you could have like water level stations and estuaries and things like that to monitor the flow of water through our rivers so that we can better manage them. So across Victoria, there's a whole network of water monitoring stations. They do a lot more than just stream flow, which is what we're going to look at today. They could do water quality, temperature, all sorts of things like that. And this information, it's almost comes in real time. So you can get it down to, like, for some gauges, every 15 minutes or things like that. So there's a lot of information. And we use this information a lot in the environmental and water space to help manage our water supply systems. So have a look at water for the environment. How much water do the fish need to survive? What's happening in a drought or a flood condition, and things like this. So we've got some kind of base data here. We've got our streamflow gauge locations. We also have a list of the quality codes. So this isn't water quality. This is how good or bad is our data. So.
Oh, okay. So this is like WOMS data quality code. Okay, so this tells me whether the data is reliable or not, I guess, or whether minimal editing required GIF. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these things. It says data transferred from a recorder. So someone manually entered this data rather than it being captured or something, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay,
so I
so there's
think
a
a
few
rule of thumb, what we typically apply, I used to use this data all the time in water resource modeling. Any data above 150, so 150 and 1 plus, is dodgy data or missing. Yeah, so anything below is typically acceptable. It depends on what you're using this data for. So it's always good not just to have the actual streamflow data, but to know how good or bad this data is.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, so we've got some lookup tables here. We've got some locations. I've got some quality codes. All right, let's have a look at this CSV file. So this is the actual data, is that right?
Yeah, this is the actual data. So this is publicly available streamflow data. We've just gone and downloaded for a handful of gauging locations the daily streamflow. So you can see we've got 3 columns of data. Very simple. We've got date, streamflow, and our quality code as well.
Okay, so this is comma separated values. We've got a date here, then a comma, then a 1.54, which looks like is our stream flow, ml per day. Okay,
Yeah, so that's
and then
megaliters. Yeah.
megaliters per day. Okay, so in 1974, on the 31st of December, we had 1.54 megaliters. The data quality looks like it's good because it says 2, and that's for SF232200. So that's the location that we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a stream
Beautiful.
flow gauging number. Yeah.
Nice one. All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this into Power BI so we can start playing around with it. So this is obviously this is water quality. You mentioned you work in water quality and data in environmental engineering. What's your background with that? Where did you start in that space?
Yeah, so I'm actually an environmental engineer kind of by training. I worked for about 8 years as a surface water and groundwater modeler. So what I did
Hmm.
there was build models, so not data models. This is more hydrological models to kind
Yeah.
of forecast how much water supply and demand are we going to have in the future. And because I was using a lot of data and doing a bit of programming for doing this computer-based modeling, that's where I kind of fell into Power BI, and it really lends itself to environmental data because our
Mm,
data is so messy. We have so much of it, and we're trying to communicate this data to lots of different people out there, not just kind of the modelers who are using it, but really those decision makers, the government,
mm,
people who really want to use this information and understand it to base their decisions off. And Power BI is just awesome. You can do a ton of stuff, like all of the nice kind of mapping, but also combining it with images and kind of
mm.
videos, animations, things like that.
Yeah, so you started off like you were doing it all in Excel before, and then you kind of discovered Power BI. How did you find this tool?
Yeah, no, I was just really lucky. I was working a little bit. We had a digital and innovation kind of team at the consulting company where I was working. And I just sat next to the head of the division, and he always got me to play around with all these new tools. I found it quite annoying because, like
Yeah.
consulting, I have a budget, I don't have time for this, and I can do everything in Excel. But then actually, Power BI, I did take a little bit of extra time to play around with. And I remember like just spending an entire weekend doing the edX course, just being like, oh my God, my mind is blown. This is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah,
So good.
yeah. It
So
has
then
that
I
effect
never
on
looked
people.
back. I think it was like 4 months later, I did a little bit of self-learning and things like that. I'm like, right, Christian, like my husband's also an environmental engineer. Let's start our
Yeah.
own company. We're doing this. I love it. I want to do it every day.
Yeah, sounds like I had the similar experience when I first discovered Power BI as well. It's like it has that effect on people, I think.
Oh,
All right, so I
definitely.
brought some files in. Hopefully, I did the right thing. You can feel free to stop anytime if I start going down the wrong thing. But I brought in these CSV files, and
Yeah.
then I just did the standard combine. So we
Awesome.
started off with our folder full of files. So I pointed for people who are new to Power BI, I used the folder connector because it's a bunch of CSVs I want to put together. That creates this transform file calculation, which is going to help me merge all those files together. So then we mashed them all up. Look, I did some auto type changing. So it looks like it's got some type changes in here. Interestingly, the quality code, it's added to a number. So would you normally, this is like a indicator number, right? So would you normally
Uh,
change that to text, or do you usually leave it?
oh, yeah, good question. I guess yeah, it could be either. I actually no, I would keep it as a number because
Hmm.
the way I've used this data before is with conditional formatting. And so
Okay.
conditional formatting, when you bring it into a rule, into a visual, you need the data to be numeric. So you can't
Mm,
create rules for text-based. So
that's a
usually
really
with
good tip.
like a with an
Mm,
indicator like this, you would typically change it to text because it doesn't have to be numeric, and you could introduce errors if they're not always numbers. But for this
mm.
one, I do know I want to do a rule to highlight values if it's above 150, which was our threshold for kind of dodgy data. It
Yeah, yeah.
saves you having to do
It's
another
it's much
kind of
easier to compare a
index.
number for above 150, isn't it? So
Mhm.
that's really interesting. So that's a good tip for people who are coming in, is that yeah, you're right, because we're never really going to say sum up these numbers, right? We're never going to find the average quality code or the sum of the quality codes. Typically, I would change this to text as well, but that point you make about conditional formatting is really important, and maybe we'll do a bit of conditional formatting later to make sure that we utilize that. But so we'll leave that as a number. But I think what we'll do is we'll change the summarization to be don't summarize, right? So
Yeah,
we can.
or it could be what we typically do, because with this data, we're not like, what we're interested in is definitely not the sum, not the average, but the maximum quality code is quite interesting. So I would
Okay.
change the
Yeah.
default summarization to be max, because a max quality code means we've got a dodgy data point here. Let's go and investigate what that is. So I'd probably
Okay.
do
Yeah,
it
that's
to
interesting.
max.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. All right, well, we'll jump on that in a second. So it's changed this to a date. It looks like it's formatted our date okay. So when you're at this stage, when you're in Power Query, what are you looking for in this data? Like, I'm automatically going and I'm checking these data types, right? Do you have any what are you looking for when you bring this sort of stuff in?
Yeah, so I'd be looking for any errors. So I guess when you're appending lots of files together, if we appended about 7 or 8 different CSV files
Mm,
together, just by kind of eyeballing it here, you can't see if there are any errors being introduced, because by default, it only loads the top 1,000 rows. I
mm,
guess we would find that out when we bring it in and you press close and apply, and you could have some errors there.
mm.
But those things are a little bit harder to check. So what we could do is maybe update the column profiling so it's based on the entire data set and not just the top 1,000 rows.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
How do I
so
update my column profiling? Can I do
yeah, so
that here?
down, uh, I don't think it's a quick thing. I think down in the bottom left of your screen, see how it
Oh
says
yeah.
that?
Oh,
Then you
look at
can
that.
base it on the entire data set. So this
Oh,
does take a few kind of seconds. It depends how big your
mm,
data set is. If you have a massive one, I probably wouldn't. Can see this looks good. So like we don't have, like sometimes if you're appending lots of CSV files together, you have to be careful if they have slightly different structures. Maybe one
mm,
of the files has 2 headers, and then you would see an error, say like where you've changed the data type to be kind of number or decimal. And we don't want those errors. So that's all looking really good. We've got a few missing data points in Streamflow. We would
yeah.
expect that. Um,
Okay.
we do have missing
Yeah, so
data,
it looks
but
like less than 1% there, 513 empties. Other than that, looks pretty good. That's awesome. This is a really nice clean data set, which is
yeah,
nice. We don't have to muck around too much with error handling.
yeah,
So that's awesome. So they're great tips, I think. Yeah, updating your column
yeah.
profiling, and then I use here in the view tab, I just turned on the column distribution and the column profile. That gives us this nice view of our data. So that's a good one for people that are looking. But if you can see that we can see the empties, and if we had errors, it would appear red here. So
hmm Yeah, then
it's a nice way to do it.
when you're done, I typically turn off that column profiling based on entire data set as well. So now we've
Mm,
looked at it, I'd change that to top 1,000 so it's nice and quick. Otherwise, it
yeah.
will keep searching
It'll
it.
keep sitting, and if that's a
Yeah.
billion rows, you're going to have a long wait. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's have a look at our gauge locations then. So this has come in pretty nicely. There was just an
hmm
Excel table. Was that formatted as a table in the Excel? Are these,
Uh,
or was it
yeah.
just I think it's formatted as a table, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Look
Yeah,
at
so
that.
definitely, I would always recommend if you have multiple kind of tables in Excel that you're bringing in,
Mm,
and you just have it on a worksheet, if you don't format it as a table range, then it can be a little bit tricky to process in Power Query. So I'd recommend just saving these as named table ranges.
yeah, and you can see here we've got the table name here, and so that's how it knows what the names of the table was. And you can see how nicely that came into Power BI.
Mm.
Gauge locations, WIMIS, Q codes, it's used those table names in Power BI. So that's a great tip. If you want to do a quick table, you hit Control T and it creates a table for you. That's my
Oh,
top tip
that's
for
cool. I
tables.
didn't. I always go
Yeah,
the
yeah.
insert table. Yeah.
No, no, yeah, that's I learned that many moons ago, and have never forgotten it. So yeah, select your data and Control T, and you get a table. So there we go. Awesome. All right, let's crack on. Don't want to spend too much time in Power
Yes,
Query,
so I
but
guess
got
a
some cool
few other
stuff.
things there. What I
Yeah.
would probably do is just with the gauge location,
Mm,
something, oh, I think you have to have the Excel shut if you're on
okay.
OneDrive as well.
Yeah, yeah. I may have that open, which is why Power BI has given us our red bar here. It's
Yeah.
okay. Yep.
Another thing I might do with this file is see the gauge name. It's in all the uppercase. I'd
Oh, yeah.
change that to be just capitalize each word so it's a bit easier to read.
Yeah, we can do that.
And that's good. So that's a really nice quick transformation. The other thing we have to be careful about here is we want to create our data model joining up the streamflow gauge ID to our CSV files. So that could be a text. Yep. So we don't have to do any calcs on that. But in CSV files, you can see what it's done here is it's brought in our file name, which
You have to make
contains
this
the
match.
gauge ID. Yeah. So we need to split that out, I think.
Cool. All right. Let me do some splitting. I'm going to get rid of so there's two ways that we could handle this. I could replace SF underscore and .csv, which would leave me with just the number, which I might do because then I don't get extra columns.
Yeah, that's good.
And so I'm just gonna do the replace values thing here. So replace values, and I go find SF, replace with nothing, and then I go replace values again, .csv, get rid of that.
Can you do that as one step? Can you replace two
I
things?
could. Oh, that's a good question. Can I put a table dot replace value and then I could copy the previous step and put it inside here, I think, and it would work.
Oh, cool. Well, I guess it
Yeah,
doesn't
if you wanted to
totally.
merge them together, but I'll just leave them as two
Yeah.
separate steps. I think don't need to go to that. Yeah, if you were going to optimize your M code, then you might do something like doing a double replace like that. I don't know if you can add extra parameters here though, like add another thing to replace, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So CSV, okay, we've got a
that.
source name. That source name is the same as our gauge locations, 23220. That's a text. This is text. That's good. So that all looks pretty nicely lined up. I don't think, do we have any other changes we want to make to this table?
No, I think it's all good.
Cool. And then we've got a quality code. That's number. We're going to leave that as number.
Perfect.
And our description's text. Description looks pretty good. Yeah, this would be another area where I'd probably have a look at the column profile, just because there's lots of opportunity for weird things to happen in, particularly if this was like a CSV. I mean, it's an Excel table, so this is all going to come in. But see, I'm noticing all these special characters.
Yeah.
If you were looking at a CSV, if there was say a comma here, you might end up with a third column. All that kind of weird stuff can happen with data. So really good to check if you've got these description fields to just give them a once over and check that their column profile's okay. Cool. Nice one. All right, Alice, I'm going to load these tables. Do you reckon we need anything else? I think we're pretty good.
I think we're good. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Close and apply. Load, load, load. So when it comes to building a report for the first time, like say this was brand new data, yeah, and this is like the first time we've ever seen it. How do you approach exploring the data? Do you bring it into Power BI and do it there? Are you the sort of person that maybe spends a bit of time in Excel first? What's your go-to methodology for finding out what this data looks like?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I guess probably even before that, I would always go back and just write down before I even look at the data because I don't want to get clouded by what it is. I want to write down what the key business questions are that we're trying to answer with this data set, and then also kind of think through what visuals we could use to kind of answer those questions as well. Otherwise, I find myself just getting really lost in the data. I go in and I get really interested in one part and I'm like, oh, we could do this and this and this. And it's kind of, I lose sight of what the big picture is. So just jotting to take 5 minutes, 2 minutes, just jot down what is the key purpose? Why are we doing this study? And what key things we want to analyze. That's probably first. And then I would, being an Excel old school user, I would probably, if it's in Excel already, I'd have a quick look there. Depends how much data we have, to be honest. If we've got a ton of data, I would have a look. Probably the first place I'd look at it is in kind of import it into Power Query, see how it all matches up there. And then quickly just get some maybe base visuals, things like a line chart so you can see trends over time, something like a matrix, and some slices, just really simple, just to see what we're working with.
Yeah, cool. All right. So, I mean, you're more familiar with this streamflow data. What's the sort of thing you would typically answer? We've got some locations. We've got our streamflow data. Is it like what's our sort of average stream flow per week type stuff by location? What are you asking of this stuff?
Yeah, so it really depends on what you're using for this, like what kind of purpose you're using this data for. But you could ask things like, how is our stream flow trend changing over time in response to something like climate change or kind of demand pressures? Maybe what gauging location has the highest average annual stream flow? What has the lowest? If we're having a look at environmental flows, how many, what is the duration of number of days between no flow events? So how often does this river dry out? How often is this river in like peak flood period? So there's a lot of kind of questions like that, but I guess they all revolve around a common theme of stream flow changing kind of over time. So definitely the time series, just a simple line chart with some slices is really good. Also kind of like in space, we definitely need a map here just to see where are these gauges located. And a matrix, especially working with engineers and scientists, we love seeing our data in table form. Everyone wants to drill into those individual records and see exactly what is the data behind it. So typically I would do a matrix, maybe some statistics for this study as well.
All right, I'm a big advocate of drawing a picture in OneNote with a mouse. So we're gonna have a crack at this. This is the Greg Nash data report design technique.
Cool.
So it's popular amongst my team. They hate it when I do this to them. All
Oh,
right,
really?
so all right, so we've got a report. Here's our report canvas. So we got a couple of questions that you kind of, I just kind of took down some of those questions. So how stream flow, what's changing over time, but you said we need a map. I think that's going to be the cool thing.
Definitely.
So we want a map, and I know you're the super map person. I know you do cool maps. So we've got like a map. Okay, so let's say nice big map that's going to show all of our locations. So that I guess they're going to be, dots on a map type thing. Is that what we're thinking? And then when we click on a dot, we want to see like what's the stream flow over time. Yeah. So we've maybe got like a line chart showing the stream flow. Is this the kind of thing where maybe, I know like I've got a weather visual where we do like a high low thing. So it's almost like here's the average over time, and it's like the temperature. So it goes down and then up. And then you've got the high for the week and then the low for the week, right? And so we do high, low, and then we have like the normal distribution. So you can do it like this. And then you can have like the all-time high. So you have like a dotted line, and then the all-time low. We could try and do something like that maybe.
Oh, that'd be
Which would
cool,
have you like, so you click on a map and then it goes, okay, here's for that week of the year or whatever. Here's the all-time high for that week. So week 1 or week 2. Here's the high for that year, and then the distribution, high, low, and you can see maybe how it moves over time. That
Yeah,
comes from like
definitely.
so maybe we'll try for that. We'll see how we go, but we might be able to get most of these elements, but we'll have to calculate so hopefully we can see as the stream moves over time how the distribution changes over time as well.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting.
And then we'll have your table, because I know you engineers love tables, so we'll do that at the bottom, right? So
Cool.
we'll have
Table's boring. Let's do the other two first. Everyone knows how to
we'll do
make a
the other
table.
two first. Everyone knows how to make a table. All right, so we're going to go for like a map. It's going to have our locations on it. We're going to have maybe our average stream flow. We'll probably have like a date slicer, right? So we can select a date range, and then and maybe we might change the sizing here, but we'll have this kind of distribution of what's happening with the high, lows, average, all that kind of stuff. Now, I saw literally today the new Power BI desktop feature got released where we can change trend lines to be driven by DAX now. So we can do we can do a line. So maybe we'll play with that, because there's like in a line graph, you know how you do these ones, you can apparently put a measure in there now. So
yeah, but I think they're only for
that'll be
the
the latest version.
horizontal, so it's only for the x-axis line and the y-axis line.
Oh, is it?
Instead
Okay.
of hard coding a value, which it was previously, now you can drive it by a measure. So if we had different thresholds for different gauges, that's awesome. But that threshold can't change over time, because I don't think it's linked to any of the data. But I think in the analytics, you've got trend lines as well. So you can use their one, but I don't know if
Okay.
we could bring our own DAX measure in for it. We can have a look.
Oh, we could. try it out. I don't know. I might not have that right version installed either, so we might not be able to do it until
I
the next
think
time.
it's only in the service at the moment. I'm not sure.
Is it in service? Oh well.
I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll see how we go. All right. Let's make sure that our little design, my beautiful sketch here, answers at least some of these questions. So how is streamflow changing over time? I think we got that.
Yeah,
I think we got that covered. The
definitely.
highs and lows. So we spoke about highs and lows of streamflow. Is climate changing? That'd be so. An interesting thing to overlay would be, like average, like your client, some kind of climate change overlay to that idea. I
Yeah,
don't think we'll have time to
definitely.
do that, but that would be kind of interesting. And then how many days? These are interesting DAX calculations actually, because you're counting the number of days when a number is 0 or
Yeah, and
is
it's
above another number.
consecutive days as well, so it's
Mm.
tricky.
Yeah, so these would be tricky. I don't know if we'll get to those.
Yeah.
Hopefully we will. We'll see how we go. All right. Well, let's do everybody's favorite. Everybody loves a map, so let's make a map. But first, we need to make our model. I'm not going to spend too much time on the model. I'm just going to build it because I want to get into the visualization. I think we'll get most people will know this is pretty straightforward in terms of our. Now we didn't rename our gauge ID. Actually, I think it's that one though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, and we've got our codes. Our codes go to our codes. Our gauges go to our gauges. Okay, so that should be good. I'll just double check this data has come through. Gauge ID, CSV file is source.name, which is our gauge ID. Might rename this column. Just
Awesome.
rename to, never spell the word gauge right. I literally type it wrong every time. Okay, gauge
Yeah.
ID. Okay, let's make sure.
Awesome. That looks
Okay,
good.
we've got a good model. Good model.
Oh, so sometimes like you typically probably do a date table with this one as well, but I don't think we're
Oh
doing
yeah.
anything fancy with dates, so we can leave it.
I do kind of want to do dates, so
Oh yeah.
I'll pick up a date table. I'm also I've downloaded the latest version of Icon Map.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, okay, so first I need to bring Icon Map so I've got it here in my downloads. How do I get it into my Power BI?
Yeah, so this is a custom visual. If you expand your visualizations pane over there, you can see we've got the 3 ellipses and you can click Get More Visuals. Typically, you'd click that first option, but the latest version of Icon Map is available on James Dales's dedicated website. So click that Import Visual from File. So Greg's gone and downloaded it.
I went and got it, and I hit the download button. I got the latest beta
Oh,
one, so
you've
it's
got
probably great.
the latest one. I don't even have that one. That was like 2 days ago.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. Hopefully it works. Anyway,
Yeah.
so we're going to import from a file here, right?
Yeah, for
Cool.
sure.
All right. And it gives you warnings to say, watch out, could be dangerous. Okay, so we're on the edges of Power BI awesomeness here. Okay, so I brought my icon map in, so that comes here in my icon map. I'm going to add that to the pane.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. All right, I'm going to make my map like nice and big, like this big. Okay.
Awesome. So
What do we
I
need to
guess,
put in here?
yeah, Icon Map has a lot of different visual formatting fields. The latest version, this version has some, like a lot more has been pushed to the formatting pane. Before it was hard to use. We're going to make a really simple map to start with, just a basic point map, and then we'll make it look a bit cooler. So let's just bring in, we need our longitude and latitude.
Now, does it help? And we've got data category summarizations. It's got lat and long. Should I categorize
You
these?
should do it. That's best practice. You don't have to for this because
Yeah,
it's
it usually
expecting a
works, right?
longitude and latitude.
Yeah,
But
cool.
best practice, we should do it.
Let's do it just to be good.
Cool.
Okay,
So bring
average
in,
of latitude, average
yeah,
longitude.
yeah, cool. And then we need to have some sort of so the category field here is really important. That is your kind of unique ID that splits up your kind of records. So for us, we know that our gauge, Streamflow gauge ID, that's unique. So you'd get it from your gauge location table.
Okay.
So you could use the gauge name. I'd probably use the ID. So the last one there.
Yeah.
Cool. And then we just need to bring the size in as well. The size is the next.
Okay, so these ones with the little star.
Yeah, it's got required. Okay. So for size, we could do maybe the average stream flow. Yeah, we could just drag that in.
Drag in the average stream flow. So you mentioned max earlier. Do you want to do max or do you want to do? I think average.
I'd probably do average of streamflow, so it'd be max
Okay.
of quality code, but average of
Oh,
streamflow looks
sorry. Yeah,
good.
average of streams. Okay, cool. Oh, look,
Oh,
we're near Ballarat. Wow, look at that.
yeah, so we're
How
out
cool is
west.
this map?
So yeah, so at the moment, I think that like this map, you're not getting anything better than what you get with the normal kind of Bing map. Like the background by default, like you get a little bit more extra
I think
detail,
the
but it doesn't.
fidelity's a bit nicer, isn't it? Like than the Bing map. Oh, and you get these nice little things. These are different hills. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I've got a house in Snake Valley right here. Look at that. Uh,
Awesome. Yeah, lots of detail on it. But I guess
hmm,
the cool thing about Icon Map and what gives it its name is the ability to not just plot kind of circles like what we've got here, but actually replace these using icons. And this is really
hmm.
cool for making more kind of infographic style maps. So we could replace these circles with maybe icons of water drops or something like that.
Oh, cool. And so you could bring in like a custom SVG, like a custom icon, and that's the
Yeah, you can bring in a SVG
yeah.
and it can render that, or you could host a PNG image online and bring in that URL link, or you could bring in a base64 image. So there's a few options. Do we want to add a
Nice.
water drop? It's pretty easy. Like you can
Yeah,
just
yeah,
get
if you want to do it. Yeah.
yeah. So I think there's a ton of places you can go to get icons. But for now, I
Okay.
reckon you could just go into PowerPoint maybe, and then you've
Oh
got the
yeah, we'll do it in
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. Yeah, let's do it. All right. And we're going to create a little icon, insert an icon.
Yeah, just insert an icon and they've got a water drop. Not the nicest water drop, but it will do. So you just type in like water
Water, this
and
guy.
do the filled one. So a filled, so see
Oh
down the
yeah.
bottom.
Ah, there he
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
the filled
Insert.
stands out a lot more on the map. So now we have to think, do we want to save this as an SVG or as a PNG, do you think?
You tell me. I don't know what the best one is. I would personally, I would save it as an SVG. I know SVGs are scalable and they kind of work, but is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some, I've experienced some kind of little glitches with the SVGs when I've
Okay.
saved it. I typically, with the icon map, I
You do
tend to
PNG?
use PNG and then I just host it. So I
Oh
can show
yeah.
you how to host it as well. Probably before we save it then, let's change the color because then we can't change. It'll look
Oh,
kind of,
okay. Yeah, yeah. Let's make it
let's
a
make it
nice
blue.
color.
Yeah, make it nice blue.
Nice blue color. Like that guy?
I like the
Like,
bottom blue. So if you go down to the very bottom standard colors,
ah, that
see
guy?
how to the left. I like that one. Yeah, that
That's
one's
good.
good.
That's a good water blue. All right.
Cool.
All right. So let's save it.
So let's save that. Save as picture
All right, I'm going to
and
put it
just save it as
in our Alice folder so that we know where to find it. So I'll just quickly do that. Desktop. Here's Alice, and we're going to call it water drop
cool, perfect. And just save it as a PNG.
as a PNG. Yeah, I'm on it. Done.
Awesome. Cool. So now we've got that as a PNG. You can to bring it into Power BI and display on icon map, then we just have to kind of host it. So SVG
Okay.
is easier, but I did notice some kind of rendering
With
issues with it a little bit.
okay, so how do you host? Because image hosting is like an often consideration for like Power BI people because we're often trying to put images in and it's crazy.
yeah.
What's your go-to image hosting?
There's a lot of different options. You could do SharePoint, Azure Blob. For something like this, I'd use IMGBB. So that's a free image hosting, super easy.
Hmm?
Just a website, and
Here
it
I am.
creates you a
Found
link.
it. Cool.
Oh,
So you
awesome.
just like drag and drop anywhere you want to start uploading your images to
Exactly. Yeah,
YouTube.
you just
Oh, this
drag
is
it
the
in.
best. I love it. All right, let me find my little file. I saved it
Uh,
to our desktop, didn't I? Oh my God, I've got everything open. Hang on. All right, water drop. Here it is. And then where's IMD image BB? Cool. So I just like oh, look
yeah,
at that.
and then just go upload.
Upload takes 2
Cool.
seconds. Oh,
So what we don't want the viewer link, we want the direct link. Where's your direct link? Oh, you don't have it.
HTML full linked.
No, we won't. No.
Will it do like this guy?
Oh yeah, maybe it will. Yeah, maybe that
I might be able
one.
to
Yeah,
steal it from here.
still. Yeah, I think for you to get the direct link, you would need an account, which is free to set up.
Okay.
And if you're using this a bit, then just create an account. But for
An
now,
account.
let's
Yeah.
do Greg's hack. And I think
Try
that
and
does
do
look
a
like
Greg
the
hack.
direct link. Yeah.
Do a Greg hack. All
Cool.
right.
So if we copy that, we can just paste that in a DAX measure. So I just
Oh
insert a
yeah, okay.
measure.
Create a new measure. Yeah.
So if you did want
Measure.
this, like the icons to be dynamic, say you've got not just streamflow gauge locations, but you've got maybe climate gauges as well, then you could make this more kind of data driven and things like that. But we're just going to have a water drop for everything.
Yeah.
So where we put this is it's under the under objects, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So then we've got image or WKT. So we want to have that link. So it's, I think we can use the conditional formatting.
We have
option.
to add it in
Yeah.
here. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Based on a field value, and then I added link.
Yeah. And we might have to change this classification. Oh no, it works.
Look at that.
Cool.
That's
So we've got
amazing.
some icons and they're all sized by the average stream flow. So there's some which are really small. What we can do to make some a little bit bigger is if we go down to objects, I think, so expand, scroll down a bit. The minimum size, just make that minimum size like maybe 20 or 30. Yeah, just to make it a little bit bigger.
This like 80. Yeah, that's what we want.
Cool. That's awesome. So this looks good, but if we want to make our map look kind of cooler, we can bring in a custom base layer as well. So if we don't want to just use the ones out of the box here.
Is it background layers? Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we can use Mapbox. So Mapbox has much nicer base layers to choose from. The only thing we need if we wanted to use a Mapbox base layer is our access token. So
okay, maybe I won't do the access token with Mapbox, but that is worth looking into because it'll just take us a little bit longer to get that access token. I do have one, but I'll have to find it. You just it's super simple, right? You just you get a free token from Mapbox, and then that'll give you access to all the different Mapbox layers. But we'll use this layer for now. That'll do for now. So this is interactive, right? I can select these guys. Look at that.
Exactly. So cool. And icon maps, you can have not just points, but you can now also have polygons and lines as well, all on your same map. So we use this a lot. Like we've just done one working with one of the regional water corps to display all of their water and sewer pipes, all of their locations of interest, things like reservoirs, pump stations, and also all of their like water supply boundaries, all on the same kind of map and make it all interactive. It's really cool.
That is really cool. Okay. I love icon map. That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to quickly go to our blog and get a calendar script. So here where is the calendar one? Creating calendar tables. So here on the Dear Watson blog, you can go here and you go read more calendar tables, and then you steal this script from here if you need a calendar table. There's plenty of places you can get one, but we've got a script at the bottom of this.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool.
So you can, I think we just need this one, copy. And then we'll go, and I'm just going to quickly create a new script and bring this calendar table in. Now, we'll have to have a look at the years, I think, to see. Do you know how far back this data goes? Looked like it went back to the 70s.
Yeah, you could do it maybe from, say, 1975, which is typically like when people say climate change might have happened.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. 1975. Okay, is that the only place I need to change? I think that's the only place I need to change it. Done. Let's see, make sure it works. Yay, look at that. Every day since 1975.
Oh, and it goes until like now.
Till now, and it's got
awesome.
all the things you would want in a calendar table. So that's a bit of fun. Okay, let's rename this to calendar.
Do you prefer to make your date tables in Power Query or DAX?
I prefer to make them in Power Query because of the extra compression, and I just find it a bit easier to make in Power Query, whereas DAX, you got to write a bunch of extra column. Like this is so easy to just copy that script in, right? I don't think like calendar tables aren't particularly big because it's just one day for every day. And so I think it's fine to create them in DAX. Personally, if I can create something in Power Query, I create it in Power Query. Yeah. Let me just join this in so that we've got it against our date. And we can use this in our calculations for when we're doing our little cool graph. So let's start making our graph. So what we want is over this side, we want like let's do the stack column chart for now. Hopefully this will work. Actually, it's probably a combo graph because we want a line in there as well. So let me do a line and stacked. Line and stacked. Okay, so that's that guy. We want to know, and I'm just, do we have week in here? Financial week, end of week. That's our shared access. By week, this is going to be super huge when we first bring it in, isn't it? Let's create a measure because I don't like using implicit measures. Do you ever use implicit measures, or are you at the stage where you just write DAX all the time like me?
Yeah, it really depends. It depends if we're handing the files over, if we're doing training. You have to build people up slowly to DAX.
Yeah, fair
But
enough.
yeah, if I was creating it for myself, then I would always go with explicit measures.
Yeah.
It's easier, saves yourself getting into kind of trouble later. You can name them properly.
Cool. Okay, so this is our average stream flow over time. I'm going to bring in a date slicer down the bottom here, just so we can mess with the time, the temporal window. Oh, my visualizations are weird because I've got them in a, okay, slicer changed. All right. Now let's look at a smaller window of time.
Cool.
Okay, so this data kind of, I'd like to start with like, it does kind of small, 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 and then massive.
Mm-hmm.
So your average stream flow, so sometimes there's like floods or something, is there? Is that what causes these spikes in the data?
Yeah, well, I guess you've got lots of gauges all selected at once. So
Ah, it's
summing
good
up
point, good
or
point. Yeah,
averaging
yeah,
all of them, it could be some might just come
yeah.
online then, or
Let's select it with just one gauge. Eh? So then
yeah.
if I select one of these gauges over here, they're the gauges, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. So that gauge is probably
Mm.
driving it.
So that's got the
So
big
there must have been a
spikies.
yeah. So there could be where is that located? If it's downstream of a reservoir, they could release a big release for certain reasons. Maybe
Mm.
it's urban water supply, but I think this just looks like a high rainfall event, probably.
Yeah, right. I wonder if they get spikes. They do get spikes every now and then, don't they? Like, he's a giant rain. I wonder what
Yeah.
happened on the 6th of February. Mm.
Yeah, that's where overlaying the rainfall is really interesting. But lots of our river systems in this part of Victoria are managed. So
Mm.
they manage it really closely. They release water for different reasons. If that's in summer, it could be for the environmental flow because fish need a certain really big, called like a fresh event, a big flow, so that they can do their breeding and things like that.
Yeah,
Um,
cool.
so yeah, it could be a whole bunch of reasons.
Okay, I am going to change it from end of week to week of year. So
Hmm.
now I'm seeing, looking at all of the years combined together, each of the weeks. Does that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, cool.
So this is week 1 and this is week 52, but it's all the years. And so if we have like a little year selector in a somewhere, I'll change this to year, I think, because we don't really need that. We can do that off the map. Okay, so in 1996, it went like that. 1999, it looked like that. It's kind of cool. So we
Yeah.
can see all the different years. Now, what I wanted to do, and that's what I was talking about with this guy, is that so this is week 1 of the year, and then we want the min and the max for week 1 of all years. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's going to be a calculation.
cool.
So let me create a little calc. I'm going to call this calc max for all years. That's going to equal, we're going to calculate the average, we're going to max stream flow. That guy. And then we're going to say all except the week number. Is not called week number, it's called week of year. I have to put works week of year. All right, so now I'm going to put this in columns. So now I get that. And then my max for all years is going to be in lines. Cool. So that's
Cool.
interesting though, because this, how It should never have
How
a
could the
max
average be
over
above?
the top. Yeah, how could the average be above the max? Oh, oh wait, that's the average, not the max.
But your line value should be the max.
Yeah, we want to make
So
this the max as well. So let's make one that's the max. Yeah.
but the average shouldn't be higher than the max.
Oh, so well, let's make the average for all years, not the max for all years.
Average for all years. Okay.
So how this week compares to all years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. How
There
come
we
you? Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. So now we get a feel. So now in 2004, it was the all years maximum, like you got the highest stream flow of all years. And so these should then, so then you get this kind of weird averagey thing going on when you deselect. So we can see whether it hit peak or not. Although it's called max for all years, which is not quite,
Yeah. So
it's
I
not really
guess
working.
yeah, average. Should we rename this measure then so it's average for all years?
Yeah, we certainly should. Sorry, I can just do it here, can I? Average inflow.
Cool. So what we're comparing here is the average across all years compared to the average of that selected year.
That's right. Yeah. So it looks like towards the end for this particular area, or this particular guy, towards the end of the year, the average goes right up. But 1997 was pretty low
Yeah.
comparatively, whereas
Well,
it was
1997 was
above.
a very
Yeah.
dry year. Yeah. So if you click on like maybe 2010, that would be a very wet year.
Oh, really? Oh, let me expand my. And you see
Yeah.
it's reflected in the data. Cool. So now we can see for each of our allocations whether we're looking at a dry or a wet year comparatively, although it's doing a kind of a strange thing. Oh, we're also not taking, I did an all, but I didn't do the all for the stream flow gauge ID as well, did I? Might need to just adjust my thing here. So we're calculating the average stream flow, but we want to ignore, this is because that'll be all gauges all.
No, but you're taking the all from the date table. So that's just clearing it as long as you've
Oh, that's
picked.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, so
So that should
I
still,
think that should be
that is
okay.
affecting it. Yeah, it
And
is
that's why we need a date table.
exactly. So we
Otherwise
don't
you get
get
really
confused. Yeah.
complex stacks. Yeah.
Okay, so that's nice. I might change this to be change the interaction so that it
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you want to filter instead of highlight. Otherwise it's a bit
now we're
confusing.
starting
Now
to
it makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. So we see in 2009, oh, that was a real
Yeah,
dry
that's dry year. Yeah, so
wet year.
2009, yeah. So I
Wow,
think there was
that's
some big floods in 2010 and 11. So the Millennium Drought goes from 1997 up until about end of 2009. So we had about like at least 10 years of dry
yeah,
across
look at that.
Victoria.
And
Really
then
dry.
well, one super wet year in 2001, and then it
Yeah,
went dry again.
dry.
That's so interesting. Okay, let's make our year a horizontal slicer and put it at the top because year's kind of fun to have in there. All right, I'm going to put this up here. We'll whack it at the top up here. That is awesome. Oh, wait. How did that was so weird.
Custom visuals, if you have them in your report, they make sometimes
Make
some other
everything else,
visuals sticky. Yeah.
other visuals become afraid. There you go. Okay. And now just to round out my little report design, you know what we're going to put here? Gauge location name. We're going to put the date. We're going to put the data quality code. I don't like this date format. Oh, let's not take the date from here. Let's take the date from here. That's the first thing we should do.
Yeah.
We also should put it in a nice, easy to read format. Okay, date. And then I'm going to turn off that gauge name's pretty long, so I'm just going to turn off word wrapping
Yeah, and we could probably, what's better for this one, maybe not a table, but a matrix.
Okay.
I think. So with the matrix, you can put, if we had lots of gauges, you could do maybe the gauge name at the top as your, what is that, your columns. And then all of your dates as
Oh,
your
I see. Yeah,
rows.
yeah, yeah. Let's do it that way.
Yeah,
Yep. So columns and then quality code. That
is
could be values for now.
values and the date. And then in the values, we'd probably have, you don't even need the quality code. You could do that with conditional formatting for the stream
Oh,
flow.
good
So you
point.
could just
Good
bring the
point.
stream flow in. That's the most important. Cool. So you got average stream flow. You could even make it like your rows. You could bring in not just date. You could do maybe year and then month and then date.
Yep. So
Uh,
make it a bit more.
yeah, just so you
Let's
can
use
really.
month name, and then people can go, okay. And then if they want to look at individual dates, they can. And then I want
Yeah,
to
exactly.
kind of want to give this the short version of the name,
Yeah, if we want a short version of the name, you could use the
the
Streamflow
ID,
Gauge
right?
ID. That's
Yeah,
what
they don't
lots of
do that.
people use in
Do they? Okay, let's use the
like
gauge
in
ID.
reports. Yeah,
There we
nice
go.
and
That's what
easy.
we wanted. Beautiful. Okay, my report questions is getting moved. It's getting. I feel like we're doing a good job of answering these questions. Look at that. Beautiful. There was all of the months of the year. Now, hey, Alice, I've got a question for you. Look at my months. What's going on?
Yeah, this happens all the time. It's Power BI, when you bring text fields in, it just sorts it alphabetically by default. So you have to change the sort order. So months are easy because we usually always have a numeric kind of month column. So you can sort it by that. So other things in environmental kind of reports you have to be careful of. You have any sort of scales like low, medium, high, which is what we use for a lot of risk assessments. Make sure you sort those in the correct order. Any sort of kind of labels, if you want certain hierarchies of all your site names, I usually add like an index column into when I'm making the table in Power Query. So you've got your unique order to sort by. But
Nice
no,
one.
that looks good.
All right, so I think do we want to color these, right, by the max data quality? So if there's a data quality issue, we can highlight it there.
Exactly, yeah. So we can do
Yeah,
conditional formatting on the values. So if you
yeah,
right click on the values, we've got like a quick link here. Probably the background color is good for this one.
yeah.
And we'll just do a simple rule. So let's not do a color scale. Let's do a
A rule or a
just
field value?
it would be the field value. If you want to do color, you have to bring in a hex code. So we'd
Oh,
have to
okay.
write a measure which stores the hex code. So I think a rule's pretty easy. So you did a measure for the max data quality
Yeah, I've got that
code.
somewhere. Here it is.
Yeah, and so we can say if it is greater than or equal to 151, and just
We have
change
to
that to
change
be a
that to
number.
number. Yeah,
And the less than, you always have to do less than. So I just make it a really big number, like 1,000 or whatever. Yeah.
9999. Yeah.
Cool. And then we can change the color, like to highlight it, maybe like a red or a yellow or something like that to show it's kind of dodgy. And you can press OK.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's
Every
so
single
dodgy.
one.
So this looks a little odd. I'm thinking that. How did you make your max data quality code
Oh, that's a good point.
measure? I think, yeah, so if we click on the measure, we can just have a look at what we've done.
We've
Yeah,
made
so
the
you've
max.
made it, yeah, so you've made the max based on the dimension table, but we really want to make it based on the fact table because that actually represents data here. So it would be,
It is a good pickup.
yeah,
Okay. Max data quality code, and we don't need the second data quality.
cool.
Okay. Oh, look at that.
Awesome. So it's not as bad as we thought. We've only got a few bits.
Mm,
And then you could drill into maybe April. If you expand out April, you can see exactly what date that dodgy data occurred.
occurred in
Where is
theoretically.
it?
Yeah.
I think it's because we've got, if you expand up, yeah.
Is it going to be one of these guys?
No, it should be for, let's go back. It would be because we're missing data there. So maybe actually, yeah, okay. So what's happened there is we get a poor quality code for data which is missing, and we're not plotting the quality code in this matrix. So we actually have, if you look at that data set, we've got two columns. One is for stream flow, the other one is for data quality. Data quality has a bad value because it's missing stream flow data. So if we wanted to see that, we would have to bring in to this matrix as well the quality code and color code that. So I guess,
I see. So you'd be,
yeah.
yeah.
Or replace the missing values with something else. So it's actually physical data. Yeah, tricky. Yeah, I usually do this as like a matrix with kind of two columns, one for stream flow
And one for the data
and one
quality.
for data quality.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. And then we would put the conditional formatting on the quality code, would we?
Yeah, exactly. So you change that to be the max.
Yeah, I'll just.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, so at the moment it's giving us the, yeah, cool.
Okay, now let me remove the conditional formatting from that guy. Nice, and we're going to add conditional formatting to this guy. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah.
Oh, we want it max though, max. Sorry. Did I just, yeah, let's make this maximum. Okay, now, so we should see, hopefully there's one that's 180.
Yeah.
So that's a bad one. Okay, so let's add our background color scale. We want it to be.
Yeah, so we did a rule and we want that to be, you could either use your measure or
We
just
can use a
change
measure.
your,
Why not? Yeah, let's use a measure. And if it's greater than 150, greater than or equal to 151, you said, didn't you? And less than 9,999, make it red. Go.
cool.
Hey, 80, 161,
Yeah.
180.
So
We
you can
did it.
see all those missing numbers there, like we're missing data. That's what was happening before. So you do have to be careful with like your fields you're using in conditional formatting. But no, this is looking really cool.
This is really cool. So, man, what did we just smashed out the coolest report in the shortest amount of time. So we brought in all that streamflow data. We mapped it on our map. We got the icon map going. We got our custom icons going. We created some measures around the average streamflow and what's the max of all time. So we can see on any given year, whether it's a wet year or a dry year. And we've got our data table there so we can see the actual numbers if we need to get into the detail. So we've got like a report that kind of answers a ton of different questions. I don't think we answered all the questions on our little report questions here, but I think this does go a long way to answering a lot of those questions.
Yeah,
I don't
definitely.
know. The only place I don't know to do is where to put that question box. So I'm just going to leave it behind the map for now. Well,
I usually use those just for sketching and maybe
yeah,
like one thing which is good to do is just put the overarching question our report is answering as the title.
yeah, let's do that.
Just so people know what it is they're looking for here. So this could be yeah, perfect.
Make it nice and big so people can read it. And there you have it. Well, I reckon that's a pretty cool report to end on. Why don't we try and stick it there? So I think that was good. We went through, we created a bunch of cool stuff. We did a bunch of different techniques, which I think is cool. People can download the PBIX file for this. I'll save it up. I'll share the interactive version of this report so people can have a play around with it. If you want to see what we did, but you don't want to build it yourself, you can download the PBIX file. We'll get the data to you as well, so we'll have links to all of that. Alice Drummond, fantastic work. Thank you for your help today. How can people, if people are interested in learning more about environmental data, tell them about Discover AI and what you guys do?
Yeah, no worries. Thanks so much for having me. Well, I guess if anyone does want to learn more, feel free to reach out directly through our website. So that's discoverai.com or connect on Twitter or LinkedIn. And at Discover AI, we specialize in both Power BI, but also graphic design for the environmental industry. So mainly focused on water because that's kind of mine and Christian's backgrounds, but the whole spectrum of environmental data. So we do a lot of Power BI consulting work, building out custom Power BI solutions, kind of like this one. But we also do a lot of training, and this we actually build a very similar report to this in our Power BI for Water Professionals training course, where we build out 4 different modules completely from scratch using all environmental data.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. This has been great. This is fantastic. I've learned a lot about how to do icon maps, so I'm excited. I'm going to make all my maps cool now. So thanks again, and yeah, we'll everybody will see you next time. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.